conversation. Right now, it's time to move on to our next corporate conversation. Now, the advent of GST is expected to be fairly kind to the lubricant products industry as effective tax rates come down. We have Rashmi Joshi, CFO and whole-time director of Castrol India, joining in to give us some color on how business is shaping up. Rashmi, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining in. So let's get the tax conversation out of the way. I mean, have you finally done your math and calculation, taking into account the input tax credit that you will get? What's the effective rate of tax, and are you looking at any price changes?
Okay, so as you know, GST is a big and transformational change for the industry as well as the whole country. There are a lot of things which are still being clarified, so everything is not out there and it's not all clear. What is clear is the output tax rate for lubricants, which has gone down by about 10% or a little more than that. And as Castrol, in line with the spirit of the law, has passed on the benefit to the consumers from day one, that is from 1st July. So we have all the administrative machinery in place, and we have started invoicing under the GST regime. We worked very closely with our business partners to ensure compliance, to help them and support them in compliance. Of course, there are tier 3 and 4 traders who still are trying to understand the implications, and I think it will be a period of few weeks by the time they understand what they are supposed to do and enroll themselves, and the whole business starts all over again in a smooth manner. So people are taking time to understand the law, but the good thing is that I think most of the people are inclined to comply, which is what Castrol has been encouraging as well. So in terms of input tax credit, yet a lot of clarity needs to emerge. Once everybody in the supply chain starts complying, only then you will see what benefits will really accrue. And at that point in time, Castrol will review the situation and take calls as appropriate.
Okay. Rashmi, good morning. You know, I was having this conversation with my co-anchor Surabhi, and she was telling me an interesting point that now with new BS4 vehicles coming in, maybe the business for Castrol could come down because the need for replacement of oil won't be as much
as frequent
as it was in the earlier vehicles. Would that be a right concern?
So, lubricants industry per se has been going through this technological change for a long time. So it's not a new thing for Castrol to handle. So Castrol has a lot of products in its portfolio, which it has worked along with the OEMs to help make changes in the technology in its own products as the engine technology changes. So we do have products in our portfolio which will help us, tide over this whole BS4 thing. So we work with Tata, we work with Maruti, so all the key OEMs we have worked with, and we do have products in our portfolio which we will be able to sell even with the change norms. Overall, if you look at lubricants industry, it's not an industry where you can expect huge volume growth, exactly because of the reasons that you said. There will be technology which is changing, drain intervals will be longer. That means people will need lesser lubricants, and that's the reason we have been focusing on personal mobility as a sector, where the quality of business is much better, and there again we work with OEMs to make products that are relevant to the current technology and consumers, and that kind of gives us a lot of leverage in terms of how we will be able to do in future and grow in future. I hope that helps you.
But ma'am, if you could give some more color on this and what this is going to mean in terms of numbers. You said that you have developed certain products specifically for BS4. Will these attract better margins? Because as you know, the BS4 impact starts playing through, what should we expect on the sales front itself this year?
So while I won't be able to talk about this year's numbers per se, as you know, we do not give guidance on the year's numbers. All I can say is that I have not heard of any big impact, adverse impact that is going to happen on the volumes because of BS4. Okay, so because as and when the technology improves, lubricant technology also changes, and better products are given, it also means obviously better margins, because it's going to go on for a longer time for the consumer who is buying. So it's usually a win-win situation. So I have not heard anything which says that because of BS4 the volumes are going to drop big time, whether in short term or long term. So I believe that there is still a lot of potential for growth in India, because vehicle sales have a lot of headroom to grow further, especially on the personal mobility side and cars. So I do see a bright future for lubricants and Castrol.
Okay. So just to understand that further, ma'am, what is the margin uptake or the differential that your BS4 specific lubricant products attract? How much higher would it be from, let's say, the base products?
So we won't be able to disclose these things here, but usually when we do our investor calls and all that, we do talk about various product categories and how they're different. So if anyone is interested, they can join those calls.
Rashmi, the other point is that just to carry forward Surbhi's point, and I'm sure you won't be able to talk guidance, but overall the concern for Castrol has been that its margin profile has not been able to improve, and there's a good reason for that, because some of your competitors also have a good brand value, just like Castrol enjoys. So is that a legitimate concern? Because the bottom line number has not been able to show enough growth.
Okay, so if you are talking of total profit, maybe we have not shown a big growth this year, but I think last year we have grown double digit. When you say our margins have not been able to improve, probably you should look at the total EBITDA margin percentages that Castrol enjoys, with more than 30%, which none of the competition enjoys. They're probably half Castrol's numbers, but a lot of numbers are not there in public domain, so in many cases you don't even know what kind of profitability other people have. But I can talk about Castrol, and you will not find many other companies who have this kind of return on sales or EBITDA margins. That speaks of the kind of portfolio Castrol has and the kind of margins they enjoy, and their brand strength, as well as future ability to retain the margins. If you look at the gross profit growth over last 6-7 years, we have more than doubled, at least 2.5 times per liter basis. So we have consciously grown our personal mobility portfolio, synthetics within that, and that has helped us grow our margins. So I don't know the data point you're referring to, but this is what I have as numbers with me.
Ma'am, finally, a question on the cash utilization policy as well. How will you look at utilizing the cash? I mean, would there be any sort of expansion given the market dynamics? Would you look at rewarding shareholders via other means like better dividends? And also, there's a bit of concern amongst shareholders about the way market share will shape up and whether there is real loss of market share to Gulf Oil.
So I don't want to comment on specific competition. All I can say is that we have either held or improved our market share during this year. And I think we said that in our first quarter call as well, in the earnings call. So and we are continuing to do what we need to hold on to a market share or to improve it. We have improved market share in personal mobility as well as CV category, and so we are focusing on volume growth. This year, as well as we have been doing it last year as well, and I think we will see results of that in the longer term. It's not going to change overnight. So if you expect a huge, because we already have a very high market share, around 20%, and if you expect a huge growth suddenly, it's not going to happen, because as you said, the market is competitive, but we are doing the right things in the market, and I believe that in the longer term we will get both volume as well as market share growth.
Okay, all right, ma'am. We'll leave it on that note for this morning. Thank you so much for joining in and giving us some color on the way business trends are shaping up. That's Castrol India. Quick break right now. We'll come back on the other side and we'll get the next conversation going. The NPA resolution.